Do you want to increase your fertility? Do you have PCOS? And not only do you want to get pregnant, but you also want to feel healthy in your body? If that's you, then welcome to the PCOS Fertility Health Podcast. Hi, I'm Dr. Angela Potter, an integrative fertility doctor, and I'm here to share with you the tools and strategies that you need to turn around irregular cycles and get the best chance at getting pregnant when you have PCOS. Let's go. Hello. I am super excited that you are here with me today because we are in this series about how do you know if you have PCOS, how to find out if you have PCOS. And in the last episode, you learned about different signs and symptoms that might be going on in your body that would point you in the direction of thinking, maybe PCOS is part of my picture. Maybe it's what's keeping me in the way of getting pregnant. And if you are in that place where you're finding some of those symptoms in your body, then your next step is to go see a doctor, which is what we are going to cover today. Before we get into that, I want to share some very kind words that were shared about this podcast. And this person writes, expert and compassionate guidance on PCOS and fertility health. Dr. Potter's podcast is an exceptional resource for anyone facing the challenges of PCOS and fertility. Dr. Potter offers not just expert advice, but practical, actionable steps tailored to enhance fertility health for those affected by PCOS. Her approach is knowledgeable and understanding, providing clarity and support without overwhelming her listeners. Her discussions cut through the noise of generic advice, focusing on effective strategies that address both the physical and emotional aspects of PCOS. Whether you are directly impacted by these challenges or know someone who is, Dr. Potter's insights are invaluable. She has a remarkable ability to make the science accessible and engaging, making her podcast a must-listen for anyone looking to optimize their health and navigate the complexities of PCOS with confidence. Thank you so much for sharing these words. I am so happy that you are loving this podcast, and thank you. All right, so now you know these different symptoms that are happening in your body, and you're thinking, yeah, I need to take this to the next step because I'm having some of those symptoms. And that next step is to go in and see a doctor. Now, you need to go see a PCOS specialist, an expert in PCOS and fertility. Why? Because PCOS is a complex diagnosis, and you do not want to be going to a doctor who is just a generic fertility doctor or a generic PCP who kind of does everything, who might miss certain things with your diagnosis, or who is not super clear with you about your diagnosis and the treatment plan forward. And here's why this is such a big red flag. A little while ago, I was working with someone and she approached me after she had been given kind of her ultimatum. She was told, okay, you'll do one more egg transfer, and whether or not that works, that's the end of it. And the reason she came to me at that point in her process was because for the previous 2 years, she was working with 2 different doctors. She was working with a PCP, so a generalist, general doctor, and a fertility specialist who really handled all sorts of issues that were creating fertility struggles. So not someone specific with PCOS. So my client had been working with those 2 doctors for 2 years. They were helping her with her fertility. Nothing was working, right? She had done the procedures, medicated cycles, the egg retrievals, and it wasn't adding up for her. And so she's working with these doctors for 2 years, and then she's having a conversation with somebody, and that person she's talking to says, hey, has anyone checked for your blood sugar levels? And she says, no, why would they do that? Why is blood sugar important for fertility? And this person says, well, to my knowledge, it impacts fertility, and particularly with PCOS. You should go ask about it. So she goes, she gets her blood sugar tested, and it is through the roof. 2 years after going through this process of working with 2 different doctors, but these are generalist doctors who are not PCOS experts and specialists, who completely missed this key missing link for this person. And so you do not want to be in that place where you're working with a doctor for a year, 2 years, 4 years, and you are getting these key missing links completely missed. And so that's when that person started working with me, because she was like, whoa, my needs are not being met here. And I need that specificity with a PCOS expert to get all these things dialed in that my body needs in order to improve my fertility for this next chance. And that's what you need too. You need a PCOS specialist. And guess what? You have got one right here. It's me. I'm here. This is what I do day in and day out in my practice. I specialize in all things PCOS and fertility. So if you are concerned about these symptoms that are going on in your body and you need help, then you can reach out and book a free PCOS fertility breakthrough session at drangelapotter.com/PCOS. I'm here for you. And so when women are coming in to see me who are concerned about PCOS and they haven't gotten the help that they needed before, what I do is I take the symptoms that they have thought about in their bodies that are saying, this makes me suspicious of PCOS. I'm asking more information about those. I'm asking about their cycles. I would ask you these same questions, how regular are your cycles? What are you seeing with ovulation? How is PMS? I'm asking about ovulation. Are you tracking ovulation? Are you getting any positive symptoms in your body for ovulation? If you're doing ovulation testing or temperature tracking, what are these results that you're seeing? And then I'm asking you more about your skin, more about that unwanted hair growth. And I'm using all of that information in combination with your lab tests. And I want to see clear information on the lab tests. Now, some doctors will diagnose people with PCOS without using labs, and you can do that. I'm going to share with you in a minute what the diagnosis looks like, but that still leaves this open-ended question of, okay, you do have these symptoms like acne and hair growth, but what is that number of your testosterone? You want to have that information so you know where you're starting from. And then you have this concrete set of information, those labs right in front of you, to then create that treatment plan moving forward that addresses specifically what your body needs. Now, doing PCOS fertility labs is a whole step in my PCOS fertility protocol. So I am covering this with every single one of my clients, and I would cover it with you as well. And so using that information about the signs and symptoms going on in your body, paired with the labs, what does that diagnosis look like? How would I actually make that diagnosis? Well, there's 3 parts to the PCOS diagnosis. In order to get diagnosed with PCOS, you need to fall into at least 2 out of those 3 pieces. Now, you certainly could have all 3, but you have to at least have 2. What are those 3 pieces? Number 1 is having elevated androgen hormones. Hormones like testosterone. Okay, you might have heard of testosterone before. That is the hormone that is in people who are born with male organs. And when testosterone is elevated in somebody with female organs who wants to get pregnant and ovulate, that testosterone, if it's elevated, it shuts down ovulation. That's why it's so important to know if it's elevated. That elevated testosterone creates symptoms like acne, that unwanted hair growth, and holding on to extra weight around the body, particularly around the belly. So some doctors will just use those symptoms to say, yeah, it's pretty clear you have high testosterone. And again, others like myself use those labs together with the symptoms. So that's criteria number 1. Criteria number 2 is ovulation issues. So me as the PCOS doctor, I am going to be looking at different signs and symptoms in your body that say, hey, this person is not ovulating. And the big red flags for that is not having any cycles at all, having really long cycles, Having irregular cycles, those are all clear signs that your body isn't ovulating. We can also look at progesterone levels to confirm if you ovulated or not that particular cycle. And we can also use a pelvic ultrasound. And that looks to see if there is an egg that actually left the ovary. And the third piece of criteria is having cysts on the ovaries. And this can be really surprising for people to think, oh, wait, I don't have to have cysts on my ovaries in order to have PCOS. And that's surprising because PCOS stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome, which means many cysts on the ovaries. So the name is a bit of a misnomer, honestly, for this syndrome, but we're just going with it for the time being, okay? So having cysts on your ovaries is only one part of the diagnosis. You don't have to have cysts. You could very well not have any cysts on your ovaries and still be diagnosed with PCOS. Now, the way to figure out if you do have cysts on the ovaries is to get a pelvic ultrasound. Some doctors will use a marker called AMH, anti-Mullerian hormone, and because that's a hormone that's produced by the cysts and the follicles in the ovaries. And so if you have a lot of cysts, you're producing a lot of this AMH and your number would be high. But having a pelvic ultrasound will be the number one way to figure out if you have cysts on the ovaries. So now in this series, you know the signs and symptoms that would point you in the direction of PCOS. And you know about the PCOS diagnosis, the importance of meeting a PCOS specialist, and what that diagnostic criteria looks at in order to diagnose you with PCOS. And on the next episode, you are going to find out why it is so dang important to get that clarity on your diagnosis. What does that open up for you in trying to increase your fertility? So stay tuned for that. It is possible to get regular periods and to ovulate on your own when you have PCOS. I see this all the time in my practice, and women with PCOS are getting pregnant every single day. And you could very well be next. Hold on to that as you go forward today. If you want to support this podcast, you can leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or simply share this episode with your friends. And as a reminder, the information on this podcast is just that. It's information, and it should not replace the medical advice that you are currently getting from your doctor. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you right back here next Wednesday.